Hey there, good evening. Welcome to the Bronx Buzz. It is BronxNet's program where we find all kinds of interesting things in the Bronx. And we've got two really fascinating segments. And the first one, we're going to get started right away with students from my alma mater. My alma mater is Lehman College. So it is journalism students. It is Kiwana Grant Floyd. We call her Kiki. Nice to see you, Kiwana, or Kiki. Thanks for
Nice
joining
to
us.
see you.
Good. And Victoria Moran Garcia. Victoria, nice to have you with us.
Hi, thank you for having us.
These are two journalism students, and they work on their paper, which is the Bronx Journal. Kiki, just a little bit about you. Why did you take journalism at Lehman College? What do you have inside you that made you want to do that?
So, when I graduated from high school in 2020,
Where'd you go to
I've
high
always
school?
been interested. Oh, I went to high school at Bronx Center for Science and Mathematics, so
Okay,
it's
just want to
pretty
clear it
far
up.
from Lehman. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, all in the Bronx, based in the Bronx. So I always had an interest in writing and current events, and then I thought, okay, I don't want to do like when I think of English, I don't think I think of like becoming a teacher, and I was like, journalism at least allows me to have an impact on current events in the real world. So I thought, why not writing current events journalism? So that's why I decided to
There you go.
enroll in the journalism program.
Well, I can only tell you that I was an English major at Lehman College, and somehow I found my way into a different field that wasn't teaching. What do you like about it? What inspires you about? I mean, you've suggested it in what you said, but what does inspire you about um, doing journalism?
Honestly, I really just like I'm a reserved person, so it's nice to be able to have an excuse to go out into the community and actually talk to people about things that, that issues that are important to them. That's really why I like journalism because it brings me out of my shell and it allows me to connect with people in a way that I probably normally wouldn't if I didn't have the excuse of just getting to
There
learn
to
what's
be a
important to
journalist, yeah.
people.
You know what I really like about and what you've suggested here is you have a passion about telling a story about something that means something, and we're going to address that in a moment. Victoria, same questions for you. Tell me a little bit about why you got into journalism at Lehman College.
Yeah, I always like talking to people, and writing and taking pictures, and so it seemed like a natural thing to do. And since then, I've really gotten into audio production, which hence the podcast. So, yeah, I really enjoyed doing this major and being able to learn more about New York City and specifically the Bronx, since I'm from East Harlem, so I didn't really have much context. Yeah, I've really enjoyed
And
it so
and you
far, though.
and you're learning how amazing we are over here in the BX. I always tell people
Yeah.
that it's like undiscovered territory because nobody knows who we really are. We just, and Victoria, you've suggested the podcast. Talk to me about fighting forward the Bronx environmental justice story. How did that begin? And what made the both of you get involved in this podcast about the environment in the Bronx?
Yeah, so in we've learned a lot about in classes campaigns about the Bronx and how having to do with housing and just anything that affects people in the Bronx. And one of the major things that kept coming up was pollution and housing. And so through this podcast, you were able to talk to people who actually did something about what was affecting their community. So the podcast, we interviewed a bunch of activists from the Bronx to learn about what was affecting them and how they stood up to it, whether it be the air quality, the housing during the Bronx fires, how they were able to rebuild, and then community gardens, how they are continuing to try to become independent.
And so it seems clear to me. This seems like a somewhat perfect educational experience because clearly you're doing something that you're putting it out and you're letting people see what it is, but you're both learning something along the way. Kiki, we're about to play a piece of this podcast that is available in the Bronx Journal. Um, is there some kind of introduction you want to give to what we're about to hear?
Yes. So this episode was mainly about only really about the Fresh Direct fight that happened about a little over a decade ago. And we interviewed this lifelong Bronx Puerto Rican activist, and he was talking about just how this group called South Bronx Unite was birthed out of this fight. So that's really what the context behind this
There
clip
you
is.
go. Okay, so here we go. This is Fighting Forward, the Bronx Environmental Justice Story, and it is a podcast, and Victoria and Kiwana have done it. Let's take a look and a listen.
Fresh Direct is an online grocery company that sells and delivers food using diesel-powered trucks. EPA, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, has outlined the many drawbacks to using diesel engines, including the harmful impacts on human health and the environment. Exposure to diesel exhaust leads to asthma and other respiratory illnesses. The exhaust creates ground-level ozone and acid rain. These effects are especially detrimental in a neighborhood filled with people who do not have access to quality health care and cannot miss days of school or work to make emergency room visits. So in response to the blatant disregard of the community and their needs, South Bronx Unite sued everyone.
The fight started in early 2012. We sued them. We sued Fresh Direct. We sued the Borough of the Bronx. We sued the city.
Unfortunately, they lost.
And we lost those cases in part because the justice system here works with judges that are appointed by their political appointees, and so they're beholden to political elected officials.
Although they lost that part of the fight, South Bronx Unite made a mark on Fresh Direct's image.
At some point, so the executive director, the president of Fresh Direct, the CEO at that time, Jason Ackerman, he was the executive director back then, but we created so much trouble that looking for new investment for Fresh Direct became a problem, and eventually the board of directors of Fresh Direct fired him.
This created the foundation and tone of South Bronx Unite. If there is a threat to the neighborhood, they won't lie.
All right, there you go. You get a sense of what you guys do. Victoria, let's just start with you. You've suggested already some of the things you've learned using that. By the way, who was that? I was listening because I know so many of them. I didn't recognize the voice.
That was Moncho Lopez from South Bronx Unite.
I know him very well. I didn't know him well enough to recognize his voice. But what did you learn from that experience? I mean, here was a case, the community was not for it. I mean, I recall that dialogue. I mean, I've been here for a number of years. But what did you learn ultimately about that?
I feel like I was just like introduced to a whole new world. I have a lot of family in the South Bronx, and I always knew that like there was water surrounding us, but I had never really gone to it. And so this was kind of an explanation and like a deeper understanding of how like the community just did not have access to it, and there were people trying to do something about it. It really just felt like an introduction to a whole new world, and like being able to go out there into Mount Haven and see like all the factories and stuff. It was really eye-opening and understanding like, oh, that's why it's kind of difficult to breathe here.
Well, that's the beginnings of it. I mean, it's very complicated. The peaker plants over there in that same part of the Bronx. Kiki, same question for you. What is it that this whole experience? Now, we played 2.5 minutes of a 4-part podcast, so there's a lot in there. But Kiki, what did you take away from the experience and also what you heard?
Well, I'm a Bronx native, so I felt like I didn't really know a lot about the environmental, work that was being done for the past, almost 40 years. And I thought that this was a great opportunity for me to go out to different parts of the Bronx to learn about what people were doing, even if it's like very close to me, because I'm not too far from Mount Haven, which was where the Fresh Direct fight was taking place. So I got to learn a lot about, what like just how small the city is and how like a lot of the campaigns people know each other, and it was nice to get to understand just that things aren't just like there's a reason why things are the way they are.
That's right.
It was nice to be able to understand that.
What I can give you 2 things about what you said. Number one, one of the things about the people in the Bronx, and this is a matter of historical record, we've had to bond together to figure out how to deal with many of the things that are being put upon us. I mean, we could talk about the burning of the Bronx, that's been well documented, and all those kinds of things. But when you have an issue like this, where the community says this isn't really the best thing that we want, and even, and here's the second part of what I wanted to say, even though there was a lot of protests, and ultimately the Fresh Direct does have a very active a plant over there in that part of the Bronx. They earned many concessions, and they forced Fresh Direct to do things like electric vehicles. There's been some question about how successful that's been, but they forced them to do it. Plus, Fresh Direct did a lot in the community to say, listen, we know you don't, they didn't say this, but we know you don't really, really like what we did, but they host things, they make donations and all that. And I'm not saying that's a one-for-one trade-off, but it is a concession that was won. Uh, Kiki, let's just ask you, what's next? What are you guys working on next? Do you have something in your mind that you're saying we're going to focus on next? Like you did this, what's next? Or you're going to do more of the same story?
Well, for me personally, I am a graduating senior,
Oh,
as well as Victoria is. I don't know exactly what I want to do after this, like what project
okay.
I'm focused on right now, but I am interning at Fairness and Accuracy and Reporting, FAIR. And I think I just want to stick with journalism and just media because I really think there's some like there's just I really have an interest there, a passion there. I don't know what type of journalism I want to do, but I know that it has to do really with environment. So far, how like probably housing and environment. I really enjoy writing stories about that, and
There
that's
you go.
been my main focus.
We
So
we need young journalists who really care about our borough. I mean, there's no question about it. Victoria, so you're graduating also. I didn't realize that. And what do you think about what you want to do next, or we're going to find out, or where are we at?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still so much more to dig into this. We didn't even get to include everyone that we interviewed over the summer. So hopefully I'll be able to write more on that and use some of those interviews and shed light on that more. But further than that, I don't know. I really like writing about the Bronx and about New York City, and there's just so much to write about.
And in the BX, it's endless. Listen, thanks, guys. We really, really appreciate what you have done. And we know that we're going to be very interested in what you will be doing as time goes on. You know who we are at BronxNet, and we'd love to have you. Maybe you could do some work over here. That would be fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us on the Bronx Buzz.
Thank you so much.
thank you for having us.
Okie dokie, folks. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, there is a beautiful mural created at one of the local hospitals. Don't go away. Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I'm thrilled because we are going to one of the most important institutions in the Bronx, and that is Jacobi Medical Center. Before we go there, just want to mention there's a time change of this program. We had been on Thursday nights, but now beginning March 1st, we're going to be on Friday nights at 6:30. So you can catch us on the BronxNet TV, on the stream, and of course on YouTube as well. But right now we are at the Jacobi Medical Center. Let's say hello to Nicholas Hughes, who's the Wellness Program Coordinator at New York Health and Hospitals, Jacobi. Nice to see you, Nick. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate you inviting me on.
Well, we've got a full house. Monica Moreno is the director of programming for arts and medicine at Health and Hospitals Corporation. Nice to see you, Monica. Thanks for joining us. And we're talking about a mural, so we've got to have an artist, and that is Ebony Bolt, who's the artist of the mural that both she and Monica are kind of displaying some of that work in the background. Nick, let's just start with you. Why is this good? Why is this important to have at Jacobi Medical Center? And basically, we're talking about a mural that has been created, and they cut the ribbon in December.
Well, as somebody who's been an employee here for about a decade, um, I've seen that. I think us as workers have always wanted kind of a communal space. Things have kind of changed, especially post pandemic. It was kind of always harder to find a space to kind of sit together, um, with everybody being together to be able to kind of talk, chat, eat. We would always spend most of our times like doing it in the offices or in places where you probably really shouldn't eat. Um, so
I won't tell. That's okay. That'll be our secret. But the point is, it's a matter of staff and also people and the general public, patients or whomever is coming through the hospital. What impact has it had? Is it a measurable impact, or it's one of those things that it's there and you start to say, "Wow, we're getting, kind of a nice social setting that we never had before."
Well, I think you could see the impact even as it was kind of being made, even from the process, because I was involved in kind of the building of it, working with like staff and some of the patients and selecting colors, selecting, what we were going to do, working with Ebony. So it started there, but then as you saw Ebony kind of add to it, and as the folks were kind of starting to change the space, you could see it immediately. People would stop, conversations would be had there. I remember joking with Ebony as she was working on the mural that like it was hard for her to kind of continue to work on it because so many people were just interested in what she was doing, and you could tell that they felt different walking through that area. So it was really
And
cool.
clearly, the notion of community and creating a community. And listen, I'm not a doctor, but all those kinds of things help people's health when they feel like they're being comforted, when they feel like they know the people around there. I mean, the benefits are extraordinary. Monica, this is the part of the community mural project. I noted that it was believed to be the country's largest public hospital mural program since the 1930s. And I'll just give the facts. 7 new murals created this year across the health system, 43 murals created at NYC HHC since 2019. Why is HHC so behind this, and why is it so important to all our public hospitals?
Art in our spaces provides a healing environment. It is shown through evidence and research that art helps to reduce anxiety. It helps us to be more present, and it helps with healing. So it reduces time in the hospital. So we work with the generosity of the Illumination Fund, the Lori M. Tisch Illumination Fund, to create these murals. And you mentioned the name, which is the Community Mural Program. And community is the key. We do it, as Nicholas said, we start with the artist and community members to share what do they want to show in the mural. And then we have a really fun and joyous paint party where everybody gets to contribute. And what was special about this one, in addition, Ebony continued to work on it because it's huge. It takes up an entire room. She was able to work on it here on site. And I do love that you asked about impact, and that's something that we're really interested in, as is the many people. We are part of the Hospital Mural Evaluation Global Research Project that's being done by the Jameel Arts and Health Lab at NYU in partnership with the WHO, and culture runners. And it is to measure the impact that these murals have on everybody within the hospital community. And if it does help to create a sense of belonging, which we very much think it does.
You really buried, to me, you know, like a journalist, you buried the lead when you said it shortens hospital stays. And that is obviously what you're talking about, doing that analysis. That to me is an extraordinary thing. Now we're just talking extraneously about the mural. Monica is sitting in front of the actual mural, right? We have a picture of the mural, which we're going to show. And Ebony, let's just talk about um, the concept and who created it. And I know it wasn't only you. Talk about all the people involved in it, and maybe Anderson, and show pictures of it as well.
Thank you, Gary. This was such a great process and eye-opening because having not just the arts and medicine program embrace me, but the staff at Jacobi and putting on the focus groups to get feedback from staff and patients to understand what they were looking for in a community mural. So my background is drawing people. I love to draw people on trains, buses, and really communicate what I see on a day-to-day basis. And New York City is such a diverse place filled with people from different backgrounds, and I like to reflect that in my work. So coming to Jacobi, I wanted to not only just take the notes that I received from the actual staff, from patients, to create the overall composition. So the people are faceless because I want people to see themselves in the work, and learning such a diverse community that Jacobi supports. I didn't want to just focus on one group of people, but I wanted to create something that had a warm and inviting palette that people could see themselves and their families in through multiple generations. And as Nick said too, with the color palette and getting feedback from staff, from patients, and seeing how the room looked as is and having those like muted colors already available, I wanted to put that in the work because I thought it was important to add to the space, but not feel like I'm trying to push any particular agenda, but wanted something that already seemed like it went with the hospital.
You know, the notion that Nick talked about, the notion of people participating. Now, let's be real. You're an artist. You conceive of things. You want to create something. Was it difficult? Did it make it easier because they had so many suggestions, or were you like, all right, enough, enough already? I want to just paint this thing.
No.
Tell me about that process, which I think is so important. It's what Monica was talking about collaboration, and everybody feels good about it. But go ahead, answer my question, please.
From my perspective, it was a seamless process.
Seamless.
Yes, because we came up with a Google form. So even the people that weren't available at the focus group, they had the opportunity to fill out that Google form to share their opinion. So it was not about getting every detail into the composition, but more of like the overall recurring themes of the ideas that people had. So not just putting like, okay, these particular groups of people are service or live in the neighborhood. It's like, okay, adding people, but it not being so specific to ethnicity or race, but also wanting to create an idea that still communicated diversity without being so literal in the process.
Could Anderson, if you could just put that up again, I want to note some things. Obviously, the note, and I think it's fascinating because when you look at it, there's so much in there. You know, the each figure represents different cultures. But notice the other thing is it looks like a person pushing somebody in a wheelchair. That could be a caregiver of some sort. There are people who are at all different levels. You can see doctors and nurses and other people really identifying a community straight ahead in the middle. I guess it's a guy with a green shirt holding a child. I mean, there's really a lot in there. When you look at it, Nick, what strikes you? What makes you say, yeah, this is what we need here at Jacobi Medical Center?
I think it's cool because I think it's like a slice of a day in the life. Like that is what often the lunch area looks like, or even the day because our office is pretty much right next to the mural. So all day I get to see kind of the people going through, and it looks very much like the mural looks, where there are people in wheelchairs, there are people with children, there are doctors, nurses, people together.
And
People even
caregivers, for example.
Mhm.
Before we run out of time, Monica, all the way on the right side, I noticed that, and this was something I think that was important to Jacobi, was the fruit basket. So the idea that healthy food is, of course, important in everybody's rehabilitation, whether they're in the hospital or they're working at the hospital or not. That kind of thing must be really rewarding for you about
And
art
it's
and health.
absolutely, and it's actually taken from Ebony's research, where Ebony, if you want to describe what you did, but walked around the hospital and sketched what was happening. And there was a farmer's market here, and I'll hand it over to you, Ebony.
Okay, we got just about a minute, so Ebony, go to it. We'll give you the final word on, let's talk about using the mural to make people healthy.
Yes, there is an internal store. Nick, I don't know the specific name, but it services a lot of the community there, where they get like fresh juices and smoothies and fruits that you can buy there, and also amazing barber who took me on a tour around the hospital, where they show that there's farmers markets and food trucks in front of the hospital, where it's a combination of not just people healing and the doctors assisting, but also using food as medicine. And I wanted to convey that in the artwork without, again,
Wow.
being so literal, but just wanting to communicate that as well.
Absolutely fascinating, and to me, there's so much here, Monica. The research that will show what artwork can do is vital. And Nick, where is it in Jacobi Medical Center, so that people who want to see it in person can do that?
It's on the first floor in building 1. As you walk, you can get to it either through the building 8 entrance or the building 6 entrance. It's kind of like in the middle between the two. And very easy. Just walk straight through.
Come on by and see it and enjoy it and appreciate. I'm going to give the final word. Appreciate all the things that go into making people healthier. It's not just getting the needle in the arm and getting wheeled into the operating room. It's also a lot about culture and about what's up here. So Nick Hughes, thank you so much. Monica Moreno, thank you so much. And Ebony Bolt, thank you so much, because this really creates real community in the Bronx and in Jacobi Medical Center. Thank you for joining us. Okay, folks, that will do it for the Bronx Buzz for this evening. Just again, a reminder, we're moving to Fridays at 6:30 p.m. And other than that, what a great show. What fun it is to just talk to people doing great stuff in the Bronx. And so, if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, we'll be back next week. That's what we do. Good night.